Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all participants from wherever. I am Driekus Kriek. I'm the Vice Dean of Pedagogy at the IEDC. And it is my pleasure to welcome you, albeit electronically. And may I start just by giving my apology to our Dean, Professor Purk, who would have been here under normal circumstances, but unfortunately have to attend the honorary memorial service of one of our honorary professors today. And unfortunately, she cannot be here. On her behalf, a welcome to you all. And also, I'm very sure that she would have liked to be here with us. Of course, the IEDC and the AGK has got a long-standing relationship, and also it is our pleasure to welcome you here electronically, and to hope that, as what it had been in the past and also in the future, you will have the opportunity to join us here around Lake Bled and see the wonderful opportunities what this presents as well. Today's webinar, we are joined and we are focused and we connect around a very important connection, important role that the current crisis leaves us also with the world around us changing, and the world in which how as business we have to reimagine the future. And for that, we will have as our main speaker today, Professor Dr. René Schmidt-Peter. He is the General Secretary of the World Institute for Sustainability and Ethics here at the IEDC and also beyond. He's a lecturer here and he holds the Dr. Jürgen Meyer Endowed Chair of International Business Ethics and CSR at the Cologne Business School. He's the editor of the renowned Springer CSR, Sustainability, Ethics and Governance book series, and the founder of International Journal of Corporate Social Responsibility as well. His research and teachings focus on the management of sustainability as well as linked to international perspectives on CSR, social innovation and sustainability. I have the pleasure to hand over to Ms. Gertrude Rantzen, who will also say a word of welcome and also then will connect you with the rest of the program, which will happen that thereafter we will give Dr. Schmidt-Peter an opportunity to present for around 30 minutes or thereabout. And thereafter we will have an opportunity where a panelists that you will see and will be introduced a little later, will have an opportunity to give a question and answer session. And then there will be also, of course, opportunity for you to send in your chats and questions. And the panel session will be led by Ms. Struger-Brigger, and she will be introduced a little while later then as well. So it's my pleasure then once again to welcome you and then to hand the floor. I wonder if it is a floor still when it is a webinar, but I hand the opportunity to speak to Mrs. Rantzen.
Yes, thank you very much to give me the floor. It is really a question if it's now a floor and how to handle it. A very warm welcome from the German-Slovene Chamber of Commerce to our today's webinar, COVID-19 Driver for the Sustainable Management. I hope that we can give the right answer by the end of today's webinar. I would like to thank the IEDC Bled School of Management for this fruitful cooperation and organization of today's webinar. Of course, we have already a longer established cooperation, and it shows how connected we two are. Special thanks are also going to the Public Agency of the Spirit for a strong support of our webinars, the so-called Nemschki Forum or Deutschland Forum, and also to the Center of the Energy Efficiency Solution for today's cooperation. I just got the information that we have today over 200 participants. Great. That shows that we are in the right time for this kind of topic. In the light of this actual economic development and this COVID-19 situation, it is really important to think in terms of sustainability. And it's very important to understand how, not how it will be today, but how it will be in the future. We as the German Slovene Chamber of Commerce have been already in the past awarding companies in Slovenia that creates synergies between a sustainable development and social responsibility with our German Economic Award. And I would like to highlight Mr. René Schmidt-Peter in the cooperation of our last year's ceremony. This year we can't do it, yeah. And I'm very, very happy that you are today with us and that you are our keynote speakers. So I wish you quite interesting insight of your presentation, and I would like to hand over then the micro to Mr. Schmidt-Peter. Thank you very much.
Okay, we said there will be some surprises. Now I can speak. Perfect. Also, welcome from my side. I today will give you a short input about the actual COVID-19 crisis and, of course, on its effects on sustainable management. I hope you can see my slides. And as you can see, I will have a following agenda. First of all, shortly talk about the COVID-19 crisis, so every one of us gets the same picture what we are all in right now. Secondly, to discuss the economic impacts of this crisis. Then we will go and look at the general state of our planet, the world situation. And then I hope every one of us clearly sees that it's all about a new business paradigm, which will hopefully guide us through this crisis and beyond. As you probably all know and also have experienced, we have the lockdown of economics that was necessary in order to stop the virus from spreading, but also to flatten the infection curve. As you can already see that many countries all over the world have been very successful in resisting the virus, and we managed to slow down the infection rate significantly. So right now in many countries, it seems that the virus is under control. There's still, of course, some exemptions like the United States, United Kingdom, but also some countries in Africa and Asia. But overall, it seems that through social distancing and the measures, the political measures we took, we got control over the spread of the virus. But the question really now is, what comes next? Yeah, we're in the mid of a pandemic. And of course, there is no crystal ball. I don't have one. Nobody of us has one. So the future will largely be influenced by our own behavior and also the next political measures we take. The University of Minnesota shows us a study with 3 scenarios. Scenario 1 means that the first wave of COVID we just experienced is followed by another series of repeating smaller waves during the next couple of months and gradually diminish by 21 or 22. The second scenario, which is, in my opinion, the worst case scenario, is that the even bigger wave will come in autumn, winter this year. This will certainly lead to further lockdowns and also further major challenges to our health and economic systems. And the third scenario, that would be probably the best, is that this first wave was the only wave, and in the coming months, we will see a slow burn of the transmission rates and the new cases, and we can finally slowly but steady get back to normal. Of course, all those scenarios are still very much influenced by our behavior and also by the development of a medicine or vaccine, which might already come in the beginning of next year. But no matter how the COVID crisis will develop, we already now see the real economic effects. I have chosen the global energy demand in order to show and compare it to previous crises. I have chosen the global energy demand in order to compare the previous crisis. And as you can see, this crisis is already more severe than the financial crisis in 2008. And if the worst case happens, it could become even a crisis as deep as the Great Depression in the 30s. But as I said, all this will depend on further development and also the further reactions we take to this crisis. In the first reaction, you can see the stock markets plummet by around about 40%, And this means billions of euros and dollars of market value have been destroyed. The central banks were reacting quickly, and that was good. But it is an unprecedented monetary expansion we right now see, which is stabilizing the stock markets. But if you look closer, you can already see that the money expansion started before the outbreak of the corona crisis, which means our economic system was already fragile and volatile before the corona crisis even started. And this leads me to the thinking, maybe the coronavirus as such is not the crisis. It might be only the trigger of the crisis. Because even without the corona crisis, we were already entering an area of debt, which of course will become now even worse. The public debt is now by far higher than many of the gross national products in the different countries. And the volume of the bonds and shares which are held by the European Central Bank has been multiplied by the factor of 20 in the last 5 years. So I think it's now becoming pretty clear that we are in a major economic change, which is not only an economic short-term crisis, but a structural crisis of our economic system. And the question, of course, in short term will be, will it be a V, U, W, or L shape? How fast can we recover from this crisis? But the more and even more important questions will be, what is the new normal after the crisis? How will this crisis affect the long and midterm strategy of our economies? And how can we not only overcome the crisis, but change the structure of our economies at the same time? And this economic change can already be served if you look at the different industries. As you can see, some of the industries are very resistant to the crisis: medtech, entertainment, e-commerce, transport, but also food industry. In other industries, you see some decreased demand, like in the oil industry, but also financial services, construction, communication. And you see, and this is most important, an industry which you don't know how it gets through the crisis. It's the new startups, but the new startups would be most important because they lead the way forward. And of course, there's a lot of industries suffering right now. One example of the sufferers is Lufthansa, now worth only 4 billion euros and in need of another 9 billion to survive. And the question will be, can those sufferers survive? Can they all survive? And how can we also bring them to a sustainable future? But I also bring another example. Zoom, we are just using right now. Its market value is already above 48 billion US dollars. That is the equivalent of the 7 largest aircraft carriers. So you can see Zoom is worth as much as Southwest, Delta, United Airlines, Lufthansa, American Airlines, Air France, KLM together. And this is already an example which shows that we see not only a short-term crisis, we really see a complete new global economy emerging. But is this economic crisis the only driver for this change? Is the coronavirus the only trigger of it? I would say no. Over the last decades, many of our business models have only survived by exploiting natural resources and social inequality. As you can see, different studies, the decline of biomass of wild mammals, 82%, a destruction of our natural ecosystems by 47%. And some scientists even say that this natural destruction could be one of the causes of pandemics like COVID-19, and that if we don't stop this destruction, we see more pandemics like COVID-19 ahead. Natural scientists clearly show that we are far over our planetary boundaries when it comes to CO2 emissions, but even worse if you look to the biodiversity loss over the last decades, but also if you look at the nitrogen cycle, which finally will lead to a breakdown of our global food supplies, and also to the breakdown of the biosphere we live in. Though I think the COVID crisis can be overcome by hygienic measures and by medicine, we soon have. But the measures we need to fight the economic crisis and the economic change we are in due to the climate change and the recession to come are far more reaching. Saying this means the corona crisis is only a catalyst for much bigger challenges to come. It clearly shows the weaknesses of our current economic system and the need to change our economy in a way which is not only tackling the short-term corona effects, but also the world's most challenging social and environmental issues. And there the Sustainable Development Goals clearly show what needs to be done. How we can realign our economic system to the social and environmental needs of the whole world. And as John Elkington already outlined before the corona crisis started, I think it was in autumn last year, he always said, we already find ourselves in a situation of high uncertainty and discomfort due to the need of the redesigning of our economies. And as said, the corona crisis is a trigger for this. We now need to really use the SDGs as a polar star, as a North Star forward, in order to identify new business opportunities. And this is like in all crises, there are immense and huge business opportunities, not only to increase efficiency, but really to think about innovation and new opportunities which are having outreach and an impact to society by the factor of 10. And finally, this will lead to a new economic business world and also new political models, which all will arise out of this crisis. I'm very positive about this. Though we are in a real systemic change, and not only in a health crisis, which some people might think. Another proof is that already in November 2019, the CEOs of the largest businesses announced a change in business paradigm. They see an inextricable link between purpose and profit. That means that it's not longer the sole goal of business to maximize profit, but the positive impact to society becomes more and more important. And every business needs a purpose which describes this link, how to make profit in a way which leads to a positive impact to society. So one can finally say that the old Chicago school of shareholder value thinking comes to an end. The old trade-off thinking between sustainability and profitability is no longer appropriate. It's not a good mindset in order to solve the challenges ahead. The new thinking is based, as Ed Freeman will write in his new book, rather on and instead of either or. It's about profit and positive impact for society, and both have to be integrated into the long-term strategy of the company. And the good news is we can already see that this new business paradigm and the companies who are applying this new mindset are getting out of the crisis faster. As you can see, the ESG companies, the companies who are applying sustainability, have lost 5% less on market value during this crisis. And of course, this sums up to billions of US dollars, which has been saved by the investors who are engaged in sustainable companies. And a key piece for this is also that the investor preferences, and this is also clearly shown by new studies, are having a strong preference towards sustainable assets in a crisis. But also the actual recovery I was just talking about, represented by the MSCI Sustainability Index, shows that sustainable companies are outperforming the conventional general world stock market. And this is all actual data, which is further giving evidence that the risk-adjusted return of sustainable businesses is by far higher than the average. And just a couple of days, BlackRock came out with a new studies, which is not meant for the public, but it was for the institutional investors, showing that if you are engaged in a long sustainable asset, so that means if you go long, if you buy sustainable companies, at the same time sell short conventional companies, that means you are taking out the systemic risk of the market, you will achieve a return which is above or around 2% higher, and you can make money easily with this strategy. And this becomes a new investment strategy to really get into sustainable stocks. Yeah, so the first learnings, and I think this is very important now for our discussion, is that the current business models get under pressure, not only because of COVID, but also because of the scarcity of resources and also the social pressure we will now experience during the crisis and afterwards. And also poor philanthropic model, that means giving money away to social environmental causes without a business intention, gets under pressure because we don't have enough financial means for this. So we have to really think carefully where to invest our money during and after the crisis. And this is kind of the new way. We need new resilient supply chains. We need new and also consumer patterns. We need new policy actions, and this all leads to new opportunities, also new growth opportunities due to inclusive business, sharing economy, corporate social responsibility, and social entrepreneurship. This is a slide which was already showing after the first financial crisis, 2008. But as I said, this structural change is now even bigger, and this means this new logic is even stronger for the future. The new thinking, combining the interests of stakeholders and the interests of the organization to bring the profit and the positive impact to a new purpose of your company, will lead you to innovation in terms of new processes, markets, products, services, and business models. And also in the end, we will see new management systems for this new thinking. This is also why the EU Commission now developed a new growth plan, the Green Deal. This new plan will address this big change of our economy. It will lead to allocation of resources over 200 billion euros a year. This is exactly the amount we need to decarbonize our economy, but at the same time also to rebuild the markets we just lost. So I hope the business case is now more than obvious and that the markets are already reacting towards sustainability. It's not only the societies, it's not only the consumers, not only the politics. It's really the markets who show that sustainability becomes a driver for economic prosperity. Why is it so? An easy answer to it. Over half of the global GDP is depending on nature and its services. So already now, half of the global GDP is relying on the services of nature. And finally, there's a big argument that if we cannot manage to develop our societies in sustainable, there will be just no economic system left. And this means instead of only trying to increase the efficiency of the current business models, to try to get back to the old model, I think we should not rebuild an economy of yesterday, as Ursula von der Leyen was saying, but redefine the purpose and impact of our businesses towards society and start redesigning the business models and make a more resilient and innovative economy, and also together create the markets of the future. And as I said, there's plenty of opportunities. Of course, some of the industry will suffer, but there's more other industries emerging out of the crisis. And as you can see already, startups worth over billions, they can also provide jobs. They also can provide products we need in the future. So the new model for sustainable business transformation really is not so much about input and output anymore. It's not the traditional management of efficiency. It's rather to define the impact on society and then define the new outcome we need. We need new systems. We need new energy systems, new housing, new mobility systems, new education systems. So there's so much new systems we need to build. It's basically not so much rebuilding the old. It's really a new era of entrepreneurship ahead. And this compares very much to this, what we call Gründerzeit, to the golden years. So it's in our hand now to use the power and energy of the crisis, not to look back too much, but really use this power of entrepreneurship to redesign our society, where the old trade-off thinking between purpose and profit gets to an end. And as said, many business schools in the world are now also together with CEOs pronouncing this new management paradigm, which we now have the big opportunity to develop together. Again, there is no blueprint for it. It is now up to the entrepreneurs, to the business schools, to the politics, to every one of us to work together and to make the best of this crisis. And then, as I said, what the virus does is not in our hand, but what we do, we can influence. And we should start with thinking the present from the future and build the world we and our children and grandchildren would like to live in the future. And then there will be plenty of markets, business opportunities. And this could be in the midterm become the most positive scenario if we rethink and use our opportunities together. So this was my short input. I hope we will have a nice discussion afterwards. I hope it was not too boring. And I hope that every one of us can now work together and collaborate on this new vision, which will be born amid the crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, René, and also for not only the insights, but more particularly also the passion and the conviction and the focus that you all give us and give us the opportunity to enjoy how that is part of who you are as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's of course the opportunity now to move over to our promised question and answer session. And for that, I would like to introduce two panelists first, and then also the moderator, if you can allow me the opportunity. To start off with Mrs. Alenka Gren. Alenka is from Spirit Slovenia and is the head manager of the national program Business Sustainability Strategic Transformation of Slovenian Companies. And she's been developing new sustainable business strategies, business models, and worked in the field of practice for the past 10 years. She's also the co-author of the first Slovenian practical manual on the subject. In particular, that focuses on how sustainable business practices in Slovenia can be made applicable and practical. That was issued in 2018. She believes that companies and their management need to undertake a profound transformation in doing business, and that only through that process of transformation, that they can create a better place for the company, society, nature, and to ensure long-term sustainability. Thank you very much for joining us, Alenka.
Thank you very much.
We also have our next panelist, Mr. Simon Franco. He's a hands-on director with more than 20 years of experience in international management and currently is managing director of BASF in 3 countries, Slovenia, Croatia, and Serbia. And as BASF claim says, we create chemistry for a sustainable future. Simon is very proud to contribute and empower others to contribute to this creation of a new future that is sustainable, and through strategic foresight, drive and determination builds not only his company, the people around him, but also the future that they envisage. His mission, personal, is to build up long-term trustful relationships with all stakeholders. Simon believes that management and business in general is much more than just profit or GDP growth, but more so living by the values we believe in will create well-being and more optimistic workplaces for all. Solving complex challenges and developing new business ideas in a diverse environment are his true passions. He successfully developed new businesses and oversaw their implementation in various countries such as Slovenia, Romania, Iran, Russia, Morocco, and many more. Thank you for joining us as well, and welcome, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you for a nice presentation and introduction.
No problem. And then if I can also introduce our host, panelist, leader, moderator, Ms. Anna Strunabrega. She's the Executive Director of the Center for Energy Solutions, the CER, and she's the initiator of the Slovene Green Recovery Initiative of 2020, focusing on cross-sectoral cooperation to accelerate the green transition and sustainable development. For more than 15 years, she's been an expert on developing and managing platforms for innovative best practice, awareness raising, networking, and event management. She was the head of House of Architecture by the Chamber of Architecture and Spatial Planning of Slovenia, and she's currently enrolled in an education program on sustainable management at Cambridge University's Institute for Sustainable Leadership. Welcome, and thank you also for the opportunity you offer you to be the moderator. Maybe just before I finally hand the floor to you as well, we will of course also be joined by René, who you are welcome also to ask questions for as time goes on and later on as well. And I will join as well. And maybe just in a small word or two about me, I am Dricus Kriek. I'm a South African, who's been living here for 4 years and bred in Slovenia, where I am the Deputy Dean for Pedagogy at the IEDC, but with specific responsibility for our doctoral programs, where I, in particular, also now linked our focus of the doctoral programs, in particular to add a DBA to our current executive PhD, with a specific focus to focus on the relevance and the connection with the real world from academia as well. I teach leadership, and I'm also the director of the Team Development Institute, as most of my life, all my writing, thinking, working, consulting, teaching has been in the world of teams. So I will then also join you. But now my great pleasure then to hand over the floor to Anna.
Thank you, Mr. Kriek, and thank you, Mr. Ranson, for hosting today's webinar on very important topic. I think we can call this day a Green Friday, and to start this green idea, this green virus spreading around the world. René, there were during the session, there were congratulations to your speech. Just a second, I just lost one. So my first question would go to Mr. Kriek, because your educational system, and we actually start at the basis. So at the learning point, very earliest learning point of our society. How do you think that the educational system will adopt and embed sustainability in all the programs of all sectors? So I mean that we will not learn for one profession and afterwards the sustainability of that profession, but that we will gain this sustainability in our DNK of any profession.
Thanks, Anna. It is, of course, a challenging question, and I mean, not only very pertinent here during this particular time, but it is kind of like, as what René pointed out, the economic system has been brewing and has been trying and waiting to come to the fore. I think the issue about education is very much linked to that need of how can we embed that sustainability so much more in what we do. Maybe by way of just a proviso, I would say in the beginning that I will talk around management education and leadership development more so than the broader education system that spreads across different generations in different industries then as well. And maybe just to stand back, I think that the whole focus of management education, and specifically how we dealt with sustainability over time, has come a long way as well. In the past, opportunities where you just found the sprinkling of maybe a particular element of it, or where it had been added on to a particular course, or where we would read a textbook either undergrad or even on the executive level, and you'll have the final chapter, there will be something, and most of the times before the exam, the professor will tell you, yeah, that's sustainability, but we've actually dealt with the discipline here, so just have a quick skim. And I think that was also then led to the fact that the whole sustainability as a research topic or a discipline is fairly young. It is something that is developing still, that is still maturing, but it had an impact also in the way in which research in that field actually come. The whole of what happened in management education these days is driven by research, and research also drives promotion of academics. And that being a younger field also impacted on the development of what was available in there in terms of how willing people were to publish and even to go into that field. So that is still definitely being developed. And I also think that it was pretty broad, still is. There are many different elements to that. Even in what we heard in Rene, there is so many touch points that it becomes very important for us to try and narrow that, and also to see, but how can we embed that differently? And in recent times, I think the whole focus of in the academic world is kind of like, if I want to say, flatlined, with some schools taking it very seriously, but some other schools are not really sure how to deal with it. Coronavirus, I think, they put to all of that, and we are in a situation where this crisis will force us to think differently about what we mean with sustainability and where it will go to. And maybe just to think in terms of what I think, where we will lead, I will just mention a few things that I think will be critical as time goes on. May I say that in the field, people involved in it, people interested in it, let me include me in saying that to us, the whole notion of SDGs is something that we live by, that we believe in, and that we hope to shape in the future as well. But you would be surprised how in the broader academic world, that has not really been embedded in the way in which people think about what they have to do as well. Just a very brief example, I can actually name a couple, but just in the past year, and let me just be broad as that, I met with somebody who teaches marketing, has been doing that for 20 years. And I told him my vision about how the importance of SDGs will drive us in the future, and he asked me, what's that? And he's been in the business, and he's currently teaching on an MBA level at a pretty decent school or field. So I think our focus in terms of how to embed that in our organizations will take a whole focus, a whole responsibility of business schools to embed SDGs into our strategies. Now, I mentioned that I think it had been broad, and I think that had been part of the problem that business schools struggled with as well, as where to find a handle into that. But I think the fact that there are now 17 makes it a whole lot easier, because instead of trying to paint everyone, it will allow opportunity for business schools, given their context, to focus on 1, 2, 3, or pick that and become that to be our driver. So collectively we can build up to that. Also, in terms of the SDGs, there are so many things below that that will allow opportunity where business schools can partner. So I think that is important as our first driver. We have a roadmap, or at least an opportunity, a tick list business schools are so often like. Second thing that I think are important as things go is that in the world of business, they often goes by the adage, you only perform the stuff that you can measure, things that you can really connect with. Now, in the world of management education, that relates to how we work and think about accreditations, ranking, credentialing. And I think that will become a future very important driver. Already there is some work out that some of the major accrediting bodies have started to include sustainable goals or also focus on sustainability, and will increasingly put that as something that will in the future also play a part in that. Obviously, they also know you can't just accredit broadly about how you do all of the SDGs, but how do you address them? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 will be an important one. The third thing that I think will be important for business schools and how to embed that as well is that there will always have to be a whole lot more lobbying from NGOs, from business community, people bought into that, all the way to the United Nations, because in the United Nations space, the whole focus on responsible education over the past 2 years is actually flattened down a bit, and it's only now, and may I say, also through the efforts of our dean here, Professor Perk, that the whole United Nations, through their prime initiative, is actually trying to focus management education back onto that level again. One more thing, and that is that it will depend on how business schools see the view of leadership and where we will have to link what business schools do in terms of leadership, also in terms of all the programs. Business schools in future, management education institutions will have to give the opportunity for people to be way more rounded in terms of what they do. And therefore pick in what way will they connect to the current narratives around leadership. And mainly there are 3. You try and connect that to what René said, that's probably embedded in what he said as well. Either the focus of leadership and the focus of where industry, business, and business schools should go is towards progress, technology, better, more, competitive, more, empowering more. On the other hand, the narrative about leadership, and may I say this is coming from the third world, as what people want to say, developing world, as we like to say here, that from that perspective, there is leadership narrative should be more about how to deal with hope, be the provider of new opportunity, thinking differently, strategically, and business schools in that space or from here will have to also try and address that narrative. And maybe somewhere in between the narrative that leadership, what business should offer is this hope in terms of transformation would be the third. So either through progress, addressing despair, or finding transformation as your leadership narrative, business schools will have to address that. And dare I say that the focus of the business school world will come from this part of the world. In the past, America has been the driver. Maybe there are some splatterings in terms of sustainability in other parts. But where else will the opportunity to drive sustainability, where else will the push come from other than from Europe, given where the coronavirus is taking us and how us in this part of the world is already, as René wanted to say, kind of like towards the end of the first wave, while it's only starting in some of the others. So just by way of an introduction, those are some of my thoughts about how I think management education will also be impacted by the current crisis.
Mr. Crick, thank you. Thank you for this point of view. Your school was really pioneer in education of management. You are one of the leading schools, and we wish you a good future to embed sustainability in all your programs. Mrs. Hren, my next question is for you. So as a state agency, which is very active in the field of promoting green Slovenia and green economy in Slovenia, you're very active in sustainable transformation of the companies as well. So what kind of program do you offer, and what kind of companies are interested for that program?
Thank you very much. Yes, Slovenia has launched already in 2015, 2016 a very profound project or pilot program for sustainability business transformation of Slovenian companies. Of course, first of all, what we wanted to do is to get into the practice, you know, and to see, to test the companies, what's going to happen when they're going to start transforming their existing way of doing business or existing business models. At the beginning, we took in 9 companies, out of which were 4 big companies in Slovenia of different ownership, which is like Slovenian and foreign, and 5 middle-sized companies. And we were actually going through the process of transformation in a year and a half with a team of experts. I have to say that was a very good experience for Slovenian companies to see exactly what happens when the transformation and the process takes place. And I think that creating long-term supportive measurements for this way of processing the sustainability in the business without actually testing in practice what's going to happen is not professional. So that's what we took, and we actually gained a lot of experience, and especially the process doing in practice is something different than just talk about it. And of course, companies, when they started and when they were entering this process, they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what's going to happen. Actually, none of us did know exactly what's going to happen, but including that the sustainability measures and sustainability values into the business, it was very, very good. The major experience that what was gained out of it is that each company is specific. Each company needs to undertake the process of doing it. And that's not about 2-3 months of work, but it's a constant work of transformation and change. And embarrassing that with the management, with the owners, and of course with all the employees in the company is a very tough work. And also what we learned is very important, that making profound changes, the best time to doing it is when you are in a good form, in a good, position, in a healthy position. Doing the change when the change or the challenge strikes you from the outside, it's a different story. So now we finished this process with those 9 pilot companies in 2017, and now we launched in 2018 a new 5-year intensive program in practice with new companies. Also, already now we have the second cycle of new 12 companies from Slovenia who are actually going through that process. And we just started in March when all the situation with the challenges with coronavirus started, and we were really like questioning ourselves. Okay, now this is the change. Now how are we going to react? How the company is going to react? Because actually we are working with the companies on the site, in the companies, right? With the employees, with the managers, with the owners. And I have to say that right now, in these past 2-3 months, we had a very profound transformation already made, because the companies had to, not all of them, but some, they had to really totally reinvent the process, change the models, start looking for new customers, because they were down on their business for like down to 10%, which is really, really not good. But they actually stood up and said, okay, now is that's what we're talking about. This is the transformation. We have to find new sustainable and sustainability ways to challenge the facts that are coming. But what we learn also is that, of course, we already talked about before about a few major external challenges that we are facing already now, and we're going to be facing even more intensively in the future, which are the disruption of the ecosystem, the challenges of the environment, the resources, the society overall, the health issues. Then, of course, there's a high transparency way of living in today's society, which is also putting the companies into the very specific situation, how they communicate, how they do their business, what is their real mission, what is their real purpose. And of course, the high self-awareness of the buyers, which of course regarding the green technologies, regarding the waste and so on, is very important. But what is the most important also here is that the companies also, or the managers in the first place, and the owners, have their true values. So they are by themselves self-aware what is their purpose and why are they doing it. If not, if they're doing this just because of the, I would say, trying to increase their self-image on the markets, and trying to do something else which is not according to their values, then this is not going to happen, and they're not going to succeed. So this is also not just the transformation of the business itself, but also the huge transformation of the personal values, personal awareness of all the managers, owners, and the employees, that they create really this ownership of the new way of doing business. So now our program is still open. So in June, we also have the second date for including new group of companies to work on this process. And of course, in the end of this process, each company goes to these major steps to prepare also their sustainability strategic strategy. And they renewed, or they are remodeling all their business models that were actually using before, and as they notified now that they're not working anymore. So I think that's very important for all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Hren. You already answered to my second question. How do the companies change and after going through your program? And I think many of them still have the chance to join this, and it's really the right year and the right moment for them to come into your program.
Well, as we said, through the process, which means that the companies undertakes as much as is capable to do it, right? So that's why we have to take the right steps at the time, not rushing the company into anything, but as much as they're capable of producing and processing the new changes in the company. What we saw is also that the managers are very much lack of skills how to manage the changes when they are introducing the changes into all the company. Of course, at the beginning, I mean, we were facing the beginning of the process. We were facing, you know, all the employees were very enthusiastic. Everybody was, you know, going for it. But then when they started processing the steps toward the transformation, of course, a lot of things happened. You know, people open up and a lot of, how can I say, things that were before, you know, under the cover came out on the spot, and they looked themselves into the mirror, and sometimes they didn't like what they saw. So we had to deal with all of this, and we saw that the maturity of the companies and the maturity of the leaders is here very important. You know, how they are dealing with all these issues that are coming up to be dealt with. You know, they had to, you know, to clean the past to build a better future, to build a better business in the future. And transformation is all about actually giving away and sending away, let go all the bad foundations that are not working anymore, and put new foundations into place. And that's quite, how can I say, very, very hard work, and takes a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of true awareness of everybody. What would I also like to mention here is that the companies, you know, the beginning, they were, or especially the owners that before we introduce them into the progress, we have the really good discussion with them. We don't let them in before they have to present themselves. They have to present their really ambitions to do that. So they were not expecting what they actually got out at the end, right? So many of them really changed, and what is more important, they embraced and embedded really the sustainability issues in their business strategies, and they were ready to see and to recognize if they're really trying to balance the impact to the environment, to the society and the economic society where they're living and doing their business with the financial impact. And that was really amazing because they saw how can they connect those issues and work for a better value of their company and their products.
Thank you very much, and we wish that really many companies will enroll your program this summer.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Schmidt-Peter, thank you for the whole overview of the strategical concept of sustainability and the scope where it goes, and also the risk and benefits what the companies can expect in the future. What about if we speak the new sustainability paradigm of sustainability? What implications does it have for business strategies?
Yeah, I think Trigos already was mentioning a little bit of this. I think this new paradigm of sustainability, we not only see a new economic management paradigm, we also see a new paradigm of sustainability is really integrating sustainability thinking into business thinking. I think this is a new social innovation about it. It's not having separate discussions anymore, to have one discussion where we not only talk about economic, but also social, environmental impact of any strategies companies do. And this also leads to the necessity to put purpose into the core of the whole discussion, because the purpose is the missing link connecting profitability and positive impact. And this, of course, if you have defined this old and new purpose, whatever, then leads to a reimagination. So you have to reimagine your value creation process under the new circumstances. And this also probably will mean to move beyond the old hierarchy. You have to integrate all your talents. You have to also maybe get into new talents. You have to also change the mindset of all your managers, which right now often is based on the old trade-off thinking between profitability and sustainability. So it's really about this new mindset, and also think in new ecosystems rather than in products and services. What is the ecosystem your company will be in the mid and long term? And those ecosystems right now are emerging out of the crisis. And that's a good thing about it. If you really use the crisis, and I think this is, the crisis is even better to change, because now you have the necessity, so you do it in a new way and reinvent your business, and especially use all innovative potential you have and all innovations which are now getting out of the crisis. We already can see many new innovative ways, like what we're doing right now, yeah, a Zoom webinar. We didn't have this before the crisis, now you have hundreds, and I see it a very productive way to discuss ideas. And I think it's also very important to overcome the old limitations, yeah, the old trade-off limitations. Leaders have to think in a way of abundance, in new possibilities, as Trigger said. And this means also that we have to be prepared for everything. Be prepared for everything to come. Nobody knows what is going to happen, but please also be prepared for the good things to happen. Yeah? In the crisis, people tell a lot what worse will happen. But as Elking in his new book of the Green Swans is saying, in every crisis, a lot of unexpected good things will happen. And I think this is where the business should be. The business leaders, the entrepreneurs should be on the good side. They should use the crisis in a way for the good, and their values and also the mindset, I think, are most important. This will become our guiding star, our North Star. And it's very important to show as a leader this North Star to all your employees, so that all the employees are invited to join to this better, brighter future, instead of losing hope and going the old way.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt-Peter, for this insight that we need a change of mindset. Actually, it's very basic.
Basic, but the best ideas are most of the time simple.
Exactly, that's true. So, Mr. Franco, you're the only one representing a company today. My question is, how do you find challenges to combine your personal vision and dedication to sustainability with corporate responsibility of the company you work for? Where are the main challenges?
Oh, that's fortunately quite easy for me. First of all, I love nature. I studied natural sciences, therefore I'm a chemist, and I work for the largest chemical industry, which is claiming that we create chemistry for a sustainable future. But let me elaborate a bit on that. First of all, what had COVID and my personal kind of lesson out of it is that we as humanity had learned a lot in the past. Imagine our grandparents 100 years ago when they faced the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu had killed around 1 to 3% of whole population, which would be around 100 times the population of Slovenia right now. I think that we had made tremendous progress, how fast we are able to adjust, how much we had learned in the past from scientists, etc. For example, just 200 years ago, or not even, Ignaz Semmelweis from Austria discovered how important it is to wash the hands, and he died poor and abandoned in Vienna. Nobody knew about that. And today, almost everybody, no matter how the ideology, the religion, sex, or whatever, we all clean our hands, we all believe that's fine. So this is just one small example that I believe that we will be also able to handle much bigger problems like this virus pandemic, and this is our sustainability and environmental challenges. So we have to be positive about it, and I think that one of the things we have to do is, of course, we have a big homework. We see and we learned also that the human-centric way of behaving, not respecting and not handling other species in the world, is not what our future will be. We have to change and we have to learn in the right way. So at BASF, we believe that chemistry is not a problem, it's a part of the solution. Whatever you're transforming from one form to another, that's a chemical process. It can be natural, nature is doing the same. So if you're cooking the food, this is a chemical process. And in this crisis, we have seen that in all countries, I know the chemical industry was considered as a strategic industry, and this might also change a bit the view on the chemical industry itself. But chemical industry, it's seen like a kind of pollutant and sometimes not considered as a part of solution. For example, what is the problem? And you asked me about the challenges. So to transform the matter, you need a lot of energy. For example, if you want to produce now the cathode for electric cars, you have to burn some metals to more than 1000 degrees. You need a lot of energy. We cannot do this without energy. And this energy, of course, makes us also to pollute or to provoke the CO2 emissions. However, for example, at BASF, we had made tremendous progress. In last 20 years, we had doubled our capacities and we did half our emissions of CO2. And this is also what we will do in next 10 years. We are planning to double our capacities and we will be neutral on CO2 emission, which is tremendous challenge. I don't know if you're aware how hard this is. For example, we are planning a new plant in India, which is around €2 billion investment. And we are promising and committing that this plant will be zero carbon emission. We don't know, probably we don't have all of the solutions yet. Might be that we will have to build a whole wind plant to supply the plant with the energy. This is just one example. And the big issue is also, how do you measure all of this? For example, we believe that 1 ton of CO2 carbon emission today consumed in our plant is helping our customers to save 3 tons of CO2 carbon emission. So if you look at one company, it's not good, it's not enough. You have to look at the whole value chain, at the whole process. For example, we have a lot of experiences in Europe as well, that we had just diluted the problem or exported the problem to somebody else. And that's not the way we have to look at it. So that's why we need also institutions probably who will be able to certificate the whole process, from the raw materials, how these raw materials are sourced, where they are sourced, how this process is done, then how it's produced, how much is respected the people working at these places, how much is this impacting the environment, how much is then this impacting the customers, and is the customers are then polluting or not the environment. And for that, we had established a new kind of KPIs, because this is not in P&L of the companies. You cannot see in this P&L. We call this, and we established this value to society principle, which is actually which we try to measure all impacts we are making. The negative impacts, like burning the energy to produce some matter, and the positive impacts from the society and to environment we are bringing then to the end consumers and customers. Thank you.
Thank you to this broad overview of your company, which has really many challenges, because the chemistry, as you said, it is considered as the pollutant, but at the end, all our products and materials are connected with this sector, and it needs really a big shift. Meanwhile, we received one question, which I will hand to first to René and then to the others if you want to answer. So Mr. Kilzenberg is saying that by his opinion, most of people and societies will go back to old normal, as it is the most comfortable and easiest style of living for most of them. How do you think? Can we really change the common mindset? And how can we reach these people before it's too late to shift the mindset? René, you have to turn on.
Of course, the easiest answer to the crisis is to get back to the old normal as fast as possible. Many people would like this, and this is probably the wish of many people, but it just won't happen. Yeah? As we can see what Simon Franco already said from BASF, business is already changing, and BASF is a good example for a leader in the chemical industry, how a new business paradigm is emerging. Value to society becomes a new and old purpose of BASF, which means to really not only think about the production process, but the whole value chain. What kind of role does BASF play to become a solution for the world challenges? So we already have good businesses showing the way forward. But we also have investors, because during the crisis, investors realized, as I show, that sustainable companies are just having a higher risk-adjusted return, and they are more resilient to the crisis to come. So it's rational now to rethink the investment patterns. And next week I will be speaking at a bank and at private equity funds. And this is now becoming the overall questions. How can we, through sustainability, also get to better investments? And I think there the profitability and sustainability is merging in the investors' field, and the last BlackRock study just goes the same direction. And I think also you already can see in the crisis, we cannot go back to the old. We did not freeze it. Yeah, the last 3 months, a lot of things have happened, and we just cannot get back to 3 months ago. And I think this is good, yeah, because many businesses which are not sustainable are suffering most. Yeah, that's a fact. So we have, of course, to think how to help them to transform, but we shouldn't do and don't do the mistake to save structures which are not fit for the future. And there the politics, as said, the EU Commission, but also national governments are thinking the same line of direction. They not randomly save everyone. They either give the money to the new sustainable companies, which need it most now, startups, but also give money only if the businesses are willing to transform to this new goal we have set in the European Union. And I also think that this new thinking of sustainability could be the common framework of the European Union. I think collaboration among Europe, among the world, becomes ever more important. And I think this is also a learning. It's not about the competition between United States, China, and Europe. We all have to act as one. We have to find a vaccine, a medicine to cure COVID. But we also have to act as one when it comes to climate change and all the other issues we are facing as humankind. And this is also the new paradigm of a very connected world through internet. Everything we do in Europe is affecting people in South America, in Asia. So we cannot win at the expense of others. This old win-lose trade-off thinking comes to an end. And I desperately think either we win together or we lose together. And the more people see it this way, they come to the other side to move it forward so that we win together.
May I add, if I may? Yes, it is true that there are this stretch back into the old, but I would just caution to see that everybody wants to go back, or everybody is going to go back, as if we are into a scenario where things will be similar to everybody. Already, I think the main thing that we will have to differentiate is that the impact of the current crisis will not be it's universally felt, but it will not be universally the same. There are and will be pockets in the world that have severe impact differently than others. Here in Europe, in some parts, you can see that the impact was much less than in others. And if you're talking to the States at the moment, you know, yesterday's unemployment figures that was added to that, 38 million people, that's 1 in every 5 persons have lost their jobs. And they reckon that only between 40 or 50% of that will return. There is no way back to just the past without some of the things that has happened there. Although many want to, there is no just a turn back clock to that. That's the one thing I would like to say. Maybe the other thing that I think that why there is also no turning back is that it could have been that the whole view about what a sustainability has been stuck pretty much over the last while in terms of a focus on nature and green and all that, which is absolutely critical for us to make sure that without that, that second wave that René showed will certainly hit hard. However, COVID, to my mind, also focused our attention to broader view of what does that necessarily mean when we look beyond nature and the importance of climate, but link that more to the demands or the focus areas that the SDGs and goals that they made to us, to link that to how it impacts on individuals and people as well, eradication of poverty, how there is inequality in the world and all that. Now, I think there is also no turning back to think in terms of sustainability in a universal, only one kind of a unimodal way. There is no turning back to that. And then I think also there would be this attempt that actually happened here in Europe. It's probably more pertinent to see, but it's happening in other parts more, is that safety lies in closing our borders. And it was, of course, a natural thing to do. It was critical at a particular stage, and a lot of things happened through that. But the very notion of, is that sustainable? Will that be the way forward? How do we have to deal with thinking in terms of our connectedness to other parts of the world? actually played out as a microcosm in Europe, but the very same thing will also now play out in larger ecosystems, if you want, kind of call. Can Europe, Schengen maybe, cluster itself into the 28 Schengen states, or how many Schengen states there are, or EU states? Can Europe as such, first part, other parts of the world, how can we, is it sustainable? How can we deal with the demands from that we cannot just close the doors and things we will be okay, compared to just thinking that everything is just okay wherever we want to go? Where is that middle ground? There is again no turning back to the future, to the past, as what things have been in terms of that as well. So to my mind, those three key things I think will be necessary to keep in mind for future. Things are different in different places. Certainly, we have to expand our view to also connect to the way people are impacted more and nature is impacted broader. And thirdly, also, what is this thing between the smaller unit to the broader connection? Those three things, there is no turning back to the past. As a minimum, those are three things we should think about. I think there are quite a few more as well.
Thank you, Mr. Crick. Here, because we have another question, and I will connect it also with Ms. Ranson, because today actually we have this international event connecting two countries, Germany, Slovenia, and well, the crisis doesn't stop on one border, and even the opportunities do not stop on one border of one nation, and also the sustainability does not. The question was, however, in Romania, as an example, a big area of forest was cut off in these 20 years, even more in the last 3-4 years, and even more in the last 2 months. So it is said that the responsible country for the mass cutting is Austria, of course, with the Romanian authorities agreement. So these are two European countries. How actually to combine the profit, fast money, and these leading triggers to go to sustainability? So maybe the answer, I would like to ask you for the answer about this cross-border collaboration achieving sustainability.
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, this is a very special issue between two countries, and usually it should be also solved between the two countries. Yeah, so if you allow a partner to take over a certain business in your country, it should be also be in the contract. But the solution cannot be between the two countries. The solution can be only on the European level, because we see it especially in Germany. When we talk about sustainability, it is not only this one country or with one company. We have to see the whole impact. Of course, when we come from the European point, it is very important to influence the European Parliament that those kind of business is also supported by the end of the day of the money which is transferred to the single countries. Yeah, so this could be, for example, one solution. Ursula von der Leyen, she of course she's a German. She was already when she started to take over the presidency. She was applying for this kind of Green Deal. And of course, now this COVID took it a little bit over. Yeah, COVID-19 problem took it a little bit over. But it is for sure, and I would agree with René, I would really strongly agree that this is the COVID-19 is driving our future also on sustainability. Yeah, because there will be no way back into this old role model in this old business. Even if the people would like to have it, because it is more, yeah, you know this, you are more in your comfort zone, but we have, and especially as a manager, we have the responsibility to drive it, yeah, and we have to start first on that field. And then, of course, in the second round, we have to go also on the political side, and then to have the influence via the European Commission.
Thank you very much. And maybe one question, because in Slovenia there are many companies connected with automotive industry, which is now going through quite hard times. It will be facing the transition, and here we are very connected with the German market. What changes will the automotive industry see, and where they should think in the future?
Yeah, this is a really challenging question. Yeah, so of course everybody sees it, and this is not only that Slovenia is quite depending on the German automotive market. We have also, let's say, other countries in the supply chain. Yeah, so there will be for sure one thing that the supply chain will change. It might be that our region here can be also a certain winner of it, but it can only change if you also go into the holistic process and not only on a single product. Yeah, we have on the one hand what we see now. It was already mentioned here. So we have not a live meeting, so we are doing everything on the digital way. Yeah, so. And that means this will also have more and more influence in the whole supply chain, production chain for the future. And of course, this will be also that they maybe less business trips. There will be less meetings, but it will be more on the digital way. And I think the companies they have to change the complete business model if they want to be a part of the future supply chain. When we go then into this question on this e-cars, yeah, so the e-car has pretty less products to build a car than a normal car has. So there will be also certain changes. And the industry, they have now to adapt, let's say not only in Slovenia, not only in Germany, but also on the European level. And therefore, it would be also quite important when I think about this Spirit project. Yeah, so I think this will have a larger influence in the future, also from the status support, because the companies cannot manage on their own. Yeah, they need this financial, but also the professional support from the state to drive this kind of change in the production lines.
Thank you, and we hope that the state will see and embed these new programs for changing the business models and even educational programs, which have to be very fast and responsive now. Yes. Because we are coming to the end, I would like to ask each of you, what will be the biggest sustainable changes in this year by each of you as a person? And how will you be different, more sustainable next year? Mr. Crick, we'll start with you.
So you hit me right there. Well, yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question. I mean, and I appreciate the fact that, you know, if we think about these things, we have to think at our own lives as well. Maybe in my mind, three things that I think there will be. One is that because I'm a South African and I come from far, I have to fly often. So of course now that means that is something that very definitely is now something that I just think in terms of how to change that, and also see the opportunities that it's not necessary to fly all that, given what tech brings to us as well. In terms of the work here at the school, I think the focus is primarily also to try and understand what it is that we have to do to be an enabler of connecting people from the view of SDG 17, the one of connecting people, leading, creating those opportunities where people drive sustainability. And I think one of the things that I certainly, as part of the doctoral program here, would like to also strengthen in this year and beyond the DBA program in particular, is to say, but how can we act as leaders also to driving a sustainability agenda, and not necessarily only to do that within a particular business. And I think that's a critical change. And thirdly, and also just in terms of my own life and experience, the whole necessity of zooming and focused on technology and what technology can bring has been, we were forced onto us maybe a little quicker than what we expected, but it is very critical for me in particular, already doing that and busy doing that, in changing many of the things that I have been doing to accommodate that as well. So I'm an academic, so you couldn't stop me in only one point. It's all the way to 3.
Thank you, thank you. Mrs. Hren, how will you change next year? I mean, be more sustainable.
Well, at this point, maybe I would like to share one very important message that I've heard. I think it was Mother Teresa that once said, that sent the message to the world and can be applied to many ways of life. It's just that if you want to change the world, then go back to your home and love your family. And I think that it's now time, more than ever, if not even it's too late almost, that we really go back to ourselves, and that we look ourselves into the mirrors and try to start with personal change and personal growth. I mean, I've been through my personal transformation for the past many years, and I know it's a hard process. It can be simply said, but it's hard and it's not easy. So I think that before we were mentioning also that people would like to go back to the things, I mean, the way they used to work and live their lives. But I think that our mentality and the nature of people is that we change then when we are pushed to the edge. And only then we can we strive for change and look into ourselves, look into the mirror, and try to do better than we did before. And I think that we don't have to wait to that edge, but start changing ourselves today. And I think my main change is not the change, but I will go with the personal transformation and personal growth. And I think that there is where the things can start to be better in the future. So I think that the personal look into ourselves and try to be better is the first step to admit our challenges, to admit our truth, and to be able to face all the darkness and try to change for the better. I think is the first step, and I will definitely follow that way of life in the future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Franco?
Yeah. First of all, I would say that United Nations 17 sustainability goals has to be a North Star, not just for companies, but also for states and also for each individual. So you have to look at that and see and say, what is my action plan, what I can contribute. Next thing is that, for example, just in my home office, which you see I am still working on, I calculated and I've made around 10,000 kilometers less with my car. Imagine this is around 700 liters of fuel, and it's around 40,000 employees of BASF right now working from home. I've calculated just right now, this is 28 million liters of fuel. This is one ship probably. This is just one example how now it's, and we leaders, we have to think about what the new normality will be. I saw recently that Twitter, for example, decided the new normality will be that they will not have any more office. We don't think about that, but for sure we will reduce the travel. And we have to keep on that. I would also mention to that this travel contributes to the air pollution improvement. Now suddenly we read how much better air we breathe, how citizens of New Delhi can see again the Himalaya. And one of the lessons learned out of this COVID crisis, that the skeptics which before had not believed that this and the human impact on this air pollution is so big, now they can see very quickly. So we can learn out of that. And so we have, for example, to work on air pollution. I would mention here, for example, what is interesting from NASA satellites picture is that a lot of cities like Paris and Madrid and Lombardia, how much the air is much cleaner right now. But however, in Western Balkans countries, not. Our cities like Belgrade and Pristina and Sarajevo, etc., are one of the most polluted cities in the world. And today, according to World Health Organization, out of 5 premature deaths is caused by air pollution. So we have to raise the awareness that this is important, that the coal, all technologies to burn coal in the thermal electrical plants, power plants, is not the way to handle. They have to be really kind of responsible and quicker actions how to change it, how to improve this air we are all breathing. Because as I said, illusion of pollution is not a solution. Yeah.
Thank you.
I will also try to work on that, to raise this awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. We will help you. And Ms. Schmidt-Peter, you are continuing your transferring theory to practice through several modules to your company, to your EEDT, and also with our organization. And what will be your sustainable transformation?
Yeah, I like this idea of also this personal transformation, because I'm working on this overcoming the trade-off idea, new mindset now for over 20 years in different contexts. And of course, it's always easier to write it rational and to theorize. But now in this crisis, we all experienced it. Yeah? For example, there is no trade-off between having a good health system and having a good economy. Yeah, because in the beginning we were thinking, oh, health systems cost too much money and so on. But now we see only if you have a good health system, if you have a good education system, if you have a good social system, you can also have a strong economy. So this old trade-off thinking every one of us experienced is not true. And also for me, I experienced it myself, and now I try to even more live to this new thinking, to this new mindset, because I also always fall back to the old thinking, yeah, because that's human, natural, the nature of human to not always follow according your own thinking. And I think this is what this personal transformation should look like. And I experienced now that we have huge leverages through digitalization. Yeah, I see that these ideas, the mindset, could, through digitalization, through our networks, through our leadership, can spread as fast as the virus. Yeah, we can see that we can change the world within 2 months. And we just need a new mindset, new ideas, new innovations, new leaders who go forward. And I think they can do the same. So we can be much faster than in the history. And this gives me a lot of hope. And finally, I also learned that the work-life balance, I think last couple of years, many of us did a lot of traveling, a lot of maybe unnecessary things. So I learned that during the crisis to focus on the real things, to focus on the most important things, on the material things, is not good only for yourself, but also increases the impact of your work. So I think the focus, this is always a topic for me, very important. I learn hopefully to focus more and become part of a change maker team, a global change maker team. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to working with you. And Ms. Ranson, the final word and the final thought is now to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. First of all, a big thank to our panelists and to our speakers. It was quite great to have you here today. Of course, I will take also a few things for me, what we can still change, despite I'm personally, I took out of this COVID-19 crisis, let's say also this kind of the new management, yes, so it is possible to manage your people also via this digital way. Of course, you have to change, and we want to take a few of the good parts. We want to take also in the new normal, or the new old normal. And I believe we have really to start with everybody on its own. It was said, René, you said, yeah, the future's influence on our own behavior. Yeah, it is correct. So we have to start first on our own behavior and to rethink on that one. So we have learned that we can lock down the economy, and we don't need all this whole consumption on that one, yeah? And this is always the small things who are changing the world, yeah? And what you can influence, this you have to change. What you can't influence, yeah? You cannot also not change, but you can influence your own behavior. Yeah, we have also learned that this current business model gets under pressure. Especially there are a few business fields where we have huge problems and huge challenges for the future. If they will survive, we cannot predict today. And but it is very important now to adapt very fast, and that we come to this integrative growth through the sustainable business in a kind of a share economy. New thinking, it's very important, yeah? It must be the interest of the organization must go aligned with the interest of the stakeholders. It's not only that we have to think into the profit, we have to think into the society as well. And of course, what is the most important when we talk about this today's topic, new sustainable management. But how do we come to this new sustainable management? A very huge part, an important part, is the whole education, lifelong learning. Yeah, so of course there is in certain fields, we also stated that there's a lack of skills of the managers. And it is also very important, it's not only that the managers and that the companies are going to change, but that there's also some kind of support by the national states, and also by in Europe by the European Commission, yeah. And this new paradigm of sustainability, this must be a future part of the business thinking. Yeah, business is changing, more collaboration. Though that's the way how I see the future, and I hope that all our participants took a few points with them for today on this so-called Green Friday. Yeah, this is perfect to say Green Friday. Maybe we can continue on that to have more Green Fridays, and not to start to change the whole world, but to start to change small things, what it is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We also have a few questions in the pool session, so we kindly ask you just to answer how useful was this webinar for you, and you just click down and select so that we get the feedback in which direction have we to go in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and maybe also on behalf of the school, just thank you to all you as panelists and everybody who joined in the webinar. It was great to join you, and we are sure to work again. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Please fill in the polls, and hope to meet you soon, either electronically or here in the beautiful shores of